Danielle Archer is the newest program manager for the Limen House Women's Program in Wilmington. Described as the gold standard for rehabilitation in the state of Delaware, the Limen House is a long-term treatment option for those battling drug and alcohol addiction.
Recovery is possible. I mean, if I can do it, I feel like anybody can do it because I feel like I was at the lowest of my low.
The Danielle you see today is a very different Danielle of nearly 3 years ago. The daughter of successful military parents, she grew up with everything she materially needed.
I think both of my parents were emotionally unavailable, and we didn't talk about feelings or emotions or things of depth or weight. It was kind of like, how was your day? Good, and then that was it. And I think as a result of that, I kind of grew up feeling very alone. About the age of 14, I ended up trying marijuana and alcohol for the first time, and I felt like I had found my missing puzzle piece. And then at about the age of 19, I discovered pain pills. And that's when the problem started.
Danielle's painkiller abuse eventually turned to heroin, which she describes as the beginning of the end. While using heroin, Danielle became pregnant with her daughter at the age of 23.
I used my whole pregnancy, and my daughter was born on August 3rd, 2014. She was born addicted, and she was kept in the NICU for a month and a half and treated for withdrawal, and that destroyed me. It destroyed me.
You'll look back and it's worth it. Yeah. That hard.
I'm glad you guys are sharing your experience with me. That's great. Yeah. You know, for a long time, I thought like I wasn't worthy of being a drug addict because I had this image in my mind like I had never gone through any kind of trauma or any kind of horrific experience, and I thought that I had to have gone through those things in order to be a drug addict.
The common image of somebody who struggles with substance use disorder is an individual, you know, under the bridge, homeless, etc. I think that's been one of the most powerful impacts of the opioid epidemic is it's really kind of shattered the stereotypical stigmatized imagery behind substance use disorder, and that's not what we're seeing.
Joshua is a PhD candidate in sociology at the University of Delaware and a research assistant at the university's Center for Drug and Health Studies. He currently serves as the Limen House's data manager, and for the last few years, he has been focusing his research on the impacts of the opioid epidemic on families in Delaware. Joshua says that 1 in 10 individuals nationwide are affected by substance use disorder, which is more commonly known as drug addiction or alcoholism.
Right now, Delaware has the 6th highest overdose death rate in the U.S. So, you know, we are up there. This is the front lines of the epidemic.
I would say 5 to 6 years ago, we began to really see a huge loss of life, 150 people, 200. Now we lose more Delawareans than to car crashes to this every 22 hours.
Bethany Hall Long is a longtime champion of public health awareness in Delaware. The first state's 26th lieutenant governor works to educate Delawareans about addiction and the dangers of fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid that's being mixed into street drugs such as heroin. According to the DEA, fentanyl is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine.
Fentanyl is deadly. Fentanyl is bad. It's my F word, and it really is not a good thing. Fentanyl really causes rapid death and rapid loss. It can be a minimal pen size, just the end of a pencil can be deadly. What it does, it stops you from breathing.
In 2018, 400 individuals died from an overdose in the state of Delaware. As the death toll continues to rise, Joshua says that the majority of individuals suffering from substance use disorder are not getting the help they need.
What is known is that roughly 10% of individuals afflicted with substance use disorder make it into treatment. Be that a 12-step facility or be that a long-term inpatient setting like the Limen House or even detox or state-funded programs. Yeah, only 10% are making it in.
Michael Jacobs, a current resident at the Limen House Men's Facility in Wilmington, is one of the fortunate 10% that has made his way into treatment.
First time I used was heroin was when I was 20, and it spiraled downhill pretty quickly to overdoses, homelessness, getting arrested. And the crazy thing is, you think all that stuff would stop me, but none of it did.
Like many people who suffer from addiction, Michael says he spent years trying different ways to achieve long-term sobriety through detox and through the most common rehabilitation programs available, which usually last no more than 30 days.
So often, and that's continuously pushed, is like this 28 to 30 day program model, right? The problem is that the brain chemistry of somebody with substance use disorder themselves takes 90 days to settle. In those 28-day programs, it's a death wish. You know, we're just removing people, you know, from being in active addiction because of the continual focus on harm reduction, and then sending them right back into the same people, places, and things with the exact same mindset they had before, wondering why the problem's not getting better. Limen House has a unique model that they're using in their treatment modality that really does seem to work. And so first and foremost is, it's not a 30-day program.
The disease impacts their ability to function at a normal level. And they really need the guidance and support to help them navigate that early stage of recovery. They're used to just doing things how they want to do them. And a lot of times they're not good intentions and they don't get good results.
The Limen House facility is located on West 10th Street in Wilmington and currently houses 15 male residents. They also have a women's house on Baynard Boulevard that houses 11. Since it was founded in 1969, Limen House has implemented a holistic approach to recovery, which continues to include housing, individual and group counseling, meditation, food, life skills training, and 12-step fellowship.
It's kind of like Pavlov's hierarchy of needs, right? Where if like you stabilize the base, then all these other things can come into play. And so at the base, we see like a stabilization of addiction, mental health, and physical health.
It is very structured here. Like, I didn't know how to cook when I got here, and we all cook at least once a week. So now I know how to cook maybe 5 different meals, but I didn't know how to do that before I got here. Limen House has pushed me to do stuff that normally I wouldn't do, or definitely don't want to do. I just didn't fully understand what I suffered from until I came to Limen House.
You're required to do it at least once a month.
While residents of Limen House are expected to follow very strict guidelines, treatment plans can be very different person to person.
It's individualized, and so, you know, some people can be here for like 6 months, some people can be here up to a year, you know, and it's really focused on the individual and what their needs are, and it's not just like looking for that quick fix solution. It's really trying to like dive in, understand the disease of addiction, how it's manifesting within that individual, and work on that.
Limen House doesn't charge a fee for residents to come here, so there's not a financial obligation, which really is a big deal, and it's kind of another thing that separates us from other facilities, because that's a burden on the residents and families.
As an organization that receives over half of its financial support through fundraisers and private donations, Limen House is able to support the individual throughout the entirety of their treatment without restrictions based on insurance.
I think we are the only long-term inpatient treatment facility in Delaware. Everything else is like 28 days, and if you're lucky, you'll get that whole 28 days. Usually insurance will cut you off after about 14 days, and that's what I experienced going in and out of rehab. They're like, oh, your insurance is cutting you off, so you have to leave. And I would only get to stay there for about 14 days.
14 days is a drop in the bucket compared to the lifetime of work it takes an addict to break the vicious cycle of addiction. In the 50 years since first opening its doors, the Limen House's greatest success is the invaluable community it has built.
Running through the whole process is family relationships, right? And this doesn't necessarily have to be like your biological blood family, right? It can be the family you're establishing within the community around here itself. So having that like social bonding is proving to be very beneficial, which is also another part of the Limen House that is incredible, is that the alumni are so heavily involved here.
My relationship with Limen House now is, the best way that I can describe it is that Limen House is my safe place.
We'll give that back down to Tom so he can start cutting.
Kevin Carter is an alumnus of the Limen House program. Sober since 2014, today, Kevin is the co-owner of a successful contracting company based in Wilmington.
His story is really nothing short of a miracle. To sort of see where he's at now and the change he's made in his life is pretty amazing.
Growing up, I come from a broken home. I never met my dad. He left before I was born. He died when I was about 11 from alcohol and heroin use. My mom was always on drugs as long as I could remember. It was always kind of like a normal thing. I was exposed to all that, and by the time I was 11 or 12 years old, it started to become a part of my life.
By the time Kevin reached 9th grade, he had dropped out of school and was drinking and using drugs every day, often with his mom. One day, she suddenly walked out of his life when he was just 15, leaving him nearly homeless in an abandoned house.
The only thing I knew how to do was to break into houses, steal cars, manipulate people, rob people, steal from anybody who let me get close to them, and that's what I did.
In 2014, Kevin entered detox, followed by a rehabilitation center, where he found himself on the verge of being kicked out for behavioral issues.
Here I am, 5 or 6 months without a drink or a drug, and it's not enough. So somehow I interviewed at the Limen House and I got accepted. I got there and I just sat, really. I spent 8 months in this process just not wanting to be homeless. I needed to learn how to just sit still and be okay with myself. I was 25 years old. I never got my license. I never got a GED. I never had a healthy relationship with anybody. I had a son who I was never in his life and never a part of. I had no family, I had no friends, and Limen House gave me all that.
Today, Kevin says that of all the obstacles he's overcome, he feels that his greatest accomplishment is becoming a true father to his son.
You know, my son's just like me. He's a good kid, so sometimes I wonder, but he's just like me. And the moments when he just randomly looks up at me and says, "I love you, Dad." I would have never thought that I would be at that place in my life. I always thought that I would be alone. And I never thought I would be sober and have the life that I have today. And none of that, again, is possible without the Limen House.
Reporting from Wilmington, this is Amanda Robbins, 22 News.